Hello everyone! Happy Monday! Tonight we are going to start stitching the Your Sweet Embroidery of the Month, and we are going to learn how to do silk shading. So silk shading is how we did this one, where we can blend all the colors of the floss together and basically paint with the floss. So we're going to learn that technique through this week here. I think it's going to be super fun. I promise you can do it. We will break it down for you in the next few days. So thank you so much for joining me. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for the beginning crafter, and I am here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time that we can relax and craft together. So I'm here for about an hour, and I work on projects from beginning to end, so you can be part of the process along the whole way. So again, tonight we are starting the embroidery of the month. It is the Your Sweet pattern. There's two different versions of it. We have just the chain stitch version and also the silk shading or thread painting version. And that is what we're going to demo over the next few days. So I'm really happy that you guys are here. I think this is going to be fun. I know a few people have asked already about how to do the silk shading, so I hope you enjoy it. I think it'll be fun. There are bundles available that have everything that you need in there. It has fabric and floss, and the PDF pattern as well. The printable pattern is included in that. So you want to check that out by just clicking the link below or heading to Penguin and Fish. It'll be there. And it's the August Embroidery of the Month, so it's just available till the end of August. So thanks again, guys. Let's flip around and get started here. Okay. So thanks again, everyone, for joining me for Embroidery Day. Okay, so we have two versions here. So if you're not interested in the silk shading, we do have the version where it is chain stitched for the most part, and that is just another really fun version. This is a very quick version. And then what we're going to be working on is the thread painting. So you can see we blend like one color of floss to another. That is what we're going to be working on. You know, here we have the text blending into each other, so we get kind of this ombre effect, and then here's the little Mr. Strawberry there, looking all cute, with a few different colors in the top, a few different colors here. What we're going to actually work on tonight is and the next few days is this peach, because we got a lot going on there. I think this would be a good place to start and kind of learn what we're doing here. One thing that I want to kind of start out with, I have a little piece of paper here, but here's the pattern. Silk shading, all of this thread painting technique is really based on a long and short stitch. So here's our pattern. This is a long and short stitch, and I'm going to just kind of lay out what we're talking about here. And this is kind of the general idea that you'll need to do throughout this whole process. I made this guy. If you look right here, this is a pretty traditional long and short stitch. So how this works, I'm going to draw it out for you. So if this is the shape that we're filling, okay, we are going to, okay, so the long and short stitch, you have a row number 1. You can actually almost divide your rows up, but you're going to have a long stitch. You're filling in to the edge of your shape here, right? So here's a long stitch. Here's a shorter stitch. Okay, so we're going to just repeat that for the row. We have a long stitch, and we're going to the edge of our shape, and a short stitch. Long stitch, short stitch, long, short, long. So your next row, and every row after that, you're just kind of making a long stitch, or until it hits the edge. So long, and then we're hitting the edge, long, hitting the edge, long, hitting the edge, and long. And this could be a larger shape too, where we have several kind of rows in there. Let's add one more here. So we can have the long, short, long, short, long, short, long, and then let's just add another one here. So this is kind of, your first row is always going to be like the long, short, but every row after that, you're going to do long. So this long one is going to go all the way up to here. This long one, we're starting lower, so we're going to here. Long, long. They're long, but they're all stair-stepped, right? Until you hit the edge. And then if we change colors again, you're still just making long stitches or you're hitting the edge. So this is the general idea of the long and short stitch that we're going to be working with here. The one difference is that with silk shading, so here again, if you want to see this in action, it is right here. So you can see we did long and short stitch for the first row, which is the red. And then every row after that, we're doing the just long stitches to fill in the gap, like bricks, until we hit the edge. So that's what we've done there. It's very uniform, filling the shape. What we're going to do with silk shading is it's basically the same concept, but you can be more organic. So you can actually move and shape things. So, let's say this is our shape. But let's say that instead of going in straight, perfect lines, we kind of arc it a little bit like that. Like maybe our lines are all different. And so our first row, it's still going to be long and short, but maybe we don't have to be so perfect. Maybe we go there and then short, and maybe it just kind of angles a little bit. We're being a little bit more organic. Maybe one goes a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. Then our next row, it's still all longs. You're going long, fill in the blank, long, long. We're going to our rows, but, we're turning at the same time. It's a little bit more fluid. We're allowed to just kind of move around a little bit. So this is just a little bit more organic way, but we're still doing the same concept as the straight, long, and short stitch. So you can kind of see that here. Here, again, is the really uniform way of doing it. And here, which is what we'll be doing, is more organic. This is also just with one thread. But this first row, that's a little bit darker, you can see that there's a lot of short pieces and then long pieces going up in there. So we are doing a version of the long and short stitch. And that is the basis of everything we're doing. We're just going to be a little bit more organic with it. But all in all, it's that long and short stitch. So, all right, that is the lowdown. Let's go ahead and transfer our design for this. So I have the bundle here. Let's just open it up. I do suggest that if you are going to do the version with if you're going to do this silk shading with me tonight, I would suggest not using your stick and stitch. So the bundle comes with a stick and stitch sticker. You actually can take this off. It's like a sticker that you stick to your fabric, and you can stitch right through this. So now this is going to work perfect if you're doing this version of it, where we're not doing the silk shading, where you're just kind of filling in all the shapes with a chain stitch. We might have time to work on this a little bit this week, or maybe we'll do it like on a Saturday or something. There is, in the bundle, you'll get all the floss needed for both. And the bundle also will come with 2 pieces of fabric. So you can try one with without the silk shading, and then you can try one with the silk shading. I'm going to use this one with the silk shading, so I'm going to set the other one aside. There's also 2 needles, and I'm going to use both of those needles for silk shading. So the silk shading, there are some fun little extra techniques with the silk shading that will be a little bit different than what we've been doing here in the past. So, all right, first up, let's give this a little bit of a press. I like to get any of those kinks out. Yes, I'm going to try and trace it. Gretchen says she already stuck it on. So you can actually use it for silk shading. I just kind of like doing it without the sticker on, just because it's one extra thing that you're stitching through. I think it's nice to be able to see the fabric and go direct on there. And then I don't have to get this wet when I'm done either, and that might just like move my stitches around. You can use that still. I've seen people do silk shading with that stick and stitch, and then they take that off later. So it's not going to be the end of the world. You can totally try it with the stick and stitch on. I'm actually only going to be tracing the peach right now because silk shading does take some time. So I think I might only get this peach done. So our peach has a whole pile of colors in it. I think it's going to be kind of fun. So I'm going to just zip ahead in the instructions. So the printable PDF, you can just actually leave it on your computer too if you want for the instructions, but I do go through the whole process, and this is what we're going to be starting tonight, the whole entire process here. But I am looking for, there we go, the Trace Me pattern. So it does have 2 patterns, you might have noticed. So this bottom one is what I'm going to use for silk shading, and it has the extra little lines in there. So these are my little markers on like when I'm just grabbing the instructions here, you guys. So it's where the colors shift and the direction of the stitches. So you can kind of see there are some gray lines. Those are my directional lines because we're not going to go perfectly straight like how we did on this guy. We're going perfectly straight up and down. This we're going to be more organic. So I'm going to aim those lines. I'm going to use these gray lines as a guide. And then these dotted lines, the dotted lines kind of show the midpoint of where I want to blend colors together. So that is what this is representing. And that's the one I want to trace. So I want to get all of those lines traced. And I'm going to go kind of like right in the center here. I'm only going to trace the peach, but if you're going to do the whole thing, then be sure to trace the whole thing. If we have more time, I might actually stitch the little strawberry right next to the peach. So, all right, I have my light table out here. You can do this on a sunny window. That works perfectly. I know there's some people have come up with some other creative ways to trace designs. I'm going to just trace with my mechanical pencil. These mechanical pencils I just feel like have like a nice sharp point to them. I think they do really well for tracing embroidery design. What it's going to give me is a nice thin line, something that I don't have to wet down later. Just by handling it, it will kind of just get rid of the line over time. But I didn't want to, after I have all my nice perfect stitches, I didn't want to get this wet, like to take out like a water-soluble marker or something like that. So I'm just using the pencil. Gretchen's saying, can I do this on a tea towel? I don't see why not. I think this would work perfectly fine on a tea towel. Your stitches are still going to be relatively small, so I don't think they're going to like shift or be too weird if it gets wet. So I would say, yeah, I don't see why not. Why you couldn't do it on a tea towel. I mean, on a tea towel, you're going to use that in theory. So you might be handling it a lot. So some of your stitches might, it might not be perfect forever, though, but I think it'll be just fine. It might get just a little worn after a while. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to just quickly trace this. This will not take long. So, tracing all the little leaves. And I am going to trace all of the lines. So, the directional lines and those like midpoint blending lines. And actually the little face too. So, we're actually going to be covering up the face with our stitches, but I have a little way that we will get that face on later. I'm going to need a little piece of tissue paper for that, and you could actually just use like a Kleenex or something too, probably. All right, so I'm going to draw this directional line. All of this is going to be covered up. And you can also just, if you can't quite see the lines, I know they're kind of a little dull on mine here, you can just keep referencing the pattern as well. All right, and then we got this color shift line here. This is like the dotted line. All right, and then I'm going to get some of these lines in here. And really, these don't have to be perfect. They're just really to kind of get you going in the right direction. And I'm going to actually, there we go. So we can start seeing some of those lines. I'm going to just get a few more in. It looks like it's just kind of angling, right? Angling towards the middle and up. And I think that will do it for me. A few stitches going in this direction. So this will just kind of give me the general idea of what direction I have to do these stitches in. But this is fine. This is exactly where we need to be right now. Okay. Let's get this in a hoop and we can get started. All right. I'm going to grab a little baby hoop here. Actually, I think I'm going to throw this in an 8-inch hoop just because I have it. But if you have a smaller hoop, you can use that as well. All right. Look, we're going to make this itty-bitty baby peach. So little. This is going to take a while, though, just to stitch something this little with the thread painting. I think it's going to be fun. All right. Let's get our hoop there. Okay. So let's find our colors, the colors that we're going to be needing for this, so we just have them available. So I have all the colors listed. They're pointed at the different shapes in here. Like, these are the colors. So you're a peach, California poppy, ink, bumblebee, and tiger lily. And then some of the greens, the fresh basil and lime peel we'll use for the leaves. We're going to work on this inner part first, and then we'll do like the leaves and everything later. And then in blue on the side here are what stitches to use. And we'll talk through that. So let's just grab these colors. So again, this is from the bundle. We need you're a peach. I think tiger lily, California poppy, and bumblebee. I think we'll just leave the rest aside. This is going to be our blending colors. So it does help with silk shading to have, when you're transitioning, if you want it to look like a perfectly blended color, like, you know, you want one color to perfectly blend into the next color, it does help that the colors are pretty close to each other. So in a sense that, like, one color seems to just naturally transition into the next color, into the next color, into the next color. So this is a pretty good example. So this is going to be our outer color. This is the California poppy, and we are going to blend. We're basically going to blend these three colors together, and then there's a splotch of yellow in there, just because peaches have just splotches every once in a while. So we don't have to perfectly blend things, but we can control the blend a little bit by the length of our stitches and how close the colors are. And then we're going to just, again, plop some of this yellow in there too. So, all right, we are ready to get started. All right, first up, we're going to start on the outermost edge down here of like kind of the main color, the color that we want to do first with those short and long stitches. And this is that California poppy color. So I'm going to just take these off. We are going to be stitching with one strand of thread, which is kind of crazy, but that is the plan. So I'm going to get maybe like my 24 inches or so. Let's trim that. We're going to actually use barely any floss here because we are just filling it with the one strand of thread. All right. Yep, we're actually going to use a couple needles. So, Gretchen, you could actually thread 4 needles. I'm going to just do it with 2. So we're gonna be stitching. If you haven't read the instructions yet, we are going to actually be stitching with more than one needle, which is kind of crazy, right? But it does help in the silk shading process because you might just think, oh man, I just need one more stitch there and it would be perfectly blended. But it sucks to like change floss in the middle of it all. So if you have another standby just on hand, and I'll show you how to do that, it makes it so easy just to grab that and get going again, right? You could have 4. You could do 4 needles for each color, but I'm going to just work on the 2 colors with 2 different needles. And as I finish the one color, I'll just switch it out with, take the needle off of that one and do the new color. So I'm going to just do it with 2. You could honestly do it with all 4. So it's just kind of fun. All right, so I have my one strand of thread here. I'm going to just thread it first and just get it on the needle here. And I'm going to tie a knot in the other side. So this knot is going to be temporary. This is how we're going to start each piece of floss. But here's how we're going to do it. I am going to, well, first of all, just so you guys know what we're doing, we are going to stitch this part here. All of this is the color number 1, which is the California poppy color. So you can see, if we look at the image here, it is this bottom color, that bottom shape that we're filling in. So we are going to want to outline that shape here. So I'm not going to cross over into the next shape. I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to go all the way around the edge, back to the other side. And we're going to do it with a split stitch. We are splitting one strand of floss, which is kind of crazy, but this does help give you a little lift to your stitches, and it gives you a good first like good edge for you. I actually have a different alternative to the split stitch that I think is going to be really fun that you could try instead. So I'm going to just go from the front of the fabric, kind of near where I'm going to start stitching, and our knot is going to just sit on the top there. And now let's do that split stitch. I'll show you how to do the split stitch, but then I'll show you the alternative because it's going to be way easier. And you could just do a back stitch. You could just do like a stem stitch. That would work too. But when I was doing all the research for this, most of the time people use a split stitch. So I'm going to get real close here. I'm going to make my first stitch. And then a split stitch, you come up in your last stitch, but you are piercing. See there. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have pierced through that last stitch. So you can see that my needle is going right through. basically splitting that stitch. So there we go. That's my first stitch. Let's do the second. What the split stitch does is do a nice uniform, organic sort of stitch. All right, there, I pierced it again there. We'll just have like a really uniform edge here. So I did actually find out a different stitch. Oh gosh, I think it's called like a pierced back stitch. And it's actually kind of like the reverse of this. So I'm going to show you that because I think it's going to be a little bit easier. So I'm going to come up as if I'm making another stitch. It's not going to be a full stitch length away. It's going to be like about a half of a stitch length of what I would think is a stitch. So I'm about an 1/8 inch away. And I'm going to actually pierce it from the front. I think that might be a little bit easier. There we go. I'm piercing it from the front. And now I'm going to make my next stitch. And again, I'm going to keep piercing it from the front. So I think this is called like a pierced back stitch. But I think it's going to be a little bit easier than the split stitch. But we're getting the same effect, right? We're piercing the stitch that came before, which is kind of blending our stitches together, and it's going to give us a really just solid organic line. So this is working really well. This maybe it's called a split back stitch. I gotta look it up again. But we're just basically piercing the stitch that came before, and I'm going to just keep going around. Step number 1, this is going to give us a nice little edge. So even if we don't get our short and long stitches, or long and short stitches, perfectly next to each other, we won't have a gap because we'll at the edge, because we'll have this nice stitched edge ready to go. This does take some time. This all takes some patience, but it really is fun. So this is definitely not going to go as fast as our other embroideries where we just like outline everything and it all just goes together just really quickly. Lucy, I am not using smaller needles. You definitely could, because you are only using one strand of floss, so you don't actually need like a huge eye, because it'll be easier to thread. I'm using just the normal embroidery needles that I usually do. Yes, Colleen, it's like a from the front split stitch. You really do have more control, especially, I mean, a split stitch is easy if you're using like 2 strands of floss, right? But with 1 strand of floss, I mean, there is the floss is still twisted, right? The one single strand, there's still a twist of a couple strands. So you are capable of splitting it, but I'm telling you, I did the sample one all with split stitch, and this is a bajillion times easier already. So it does say split stitch in the instructions, but here, this is like a little hack, doing this like pierced back stitch. Or from the front split stitch. I suppose we can call it whatever we want, huh? And we're going to go through our floss really quick because all these little itty bitty stitches use up the floss. Yeah, this from the front way of doing this is quite a bit easier. Oh, that's a good point. Colleen says my eyes need the eye size. So yes, so I have some large eyes on my needles here. It does make it easy to thread, for sure. Oh, you guys, I forgot something already, but we'll do it for the rest. So there is a kind of a unique way, I think, for silk shading on how to start and end floss. I did the little knot, but I forgot the rest of it. So I'll show you that in a sec because we're gonna be out of this thread already. Just about. So I'll show you that next. Oh, that would be fun. So Gretchen says, I love this cute peach design. How cute would it be to do all sorts of fruits and veggies? That would be so much fun. I would love that. I just think this would be like cute on like a polo shirt or something. Like, instead of like, like the little alligator or whatever, just like doing a tiny little piece of fruit. I just think that would be so fun. So cute. Like these little teeny details. Oh, Sue says she always uses a magnifier when doing embroidery work. That's smart. I should get one of those. That would be nice. Just like one of those lights that has the magnifier on. That'd be nice. All right, you guys. So that is it for this shape. So everything after this is the new color. So like this color right here, up there, that's the tiger lily. And this right here is the bumblebee, the yellow. So I'm going to trace those with that color once I get to it. So I'm actually kind of done with the outline of that. What color is this again? The California poppy color. All right, so I have a little bit of thread left, enough to make a few more stitches. So I am going to go on to the next step. So this is going to start our first row. All right, this is like our prep, right? Our first row is the long and short stitches. So kind of what we were talking about earlier, where the first row is always short, long, short, long. So what we're going to do first... Oh, Catherine says this would be nice to cover a hole in your clothes. Oh, it would be so cute. You could do it first on a different piece of fabric and then like stitch it over the hole. Oh, that'd be so silly and cute. All right, so here's where our directional lines come into play. And other people do this differently, but I found that this was super helpful, especially when you're doing a shape where you're not going to do all the stitches in the same direction. This we're going to kind of go towards the center and to the top is the general shape or the general direction of our stitches. So let's just take a look at our finished one here. You can kind of tell that the stitches all go kind of to the inside and then kind of just go straight up to the top. So we're just going to, like these sides are going like, nope. These sides are going, nope. And these are going kind of straight up. So we're kind of dealing with a shape. We have to decide how we want the angle of our stitches to go. And that's kind of laid out already in our directional lines here. So what I'm going to do first is actually stitch some of those directional lines. So I'm going to start on the inside of the shape. And remember, this line here is our middle of the color line. So I'm going to do some short stitches. I'm going to just follow the lines that I've drawn on here. So start on the inside, and following my directional line, I'm going to follow that, and then I'm going to go on the outside of our split stitch here. So I'm going to go on the outside of that. The split stitch is going to be kind of like padding for our whole piece. So there we go. There's our first bit there. And I got another directional line here. I'm going to just follow my directional lines for right now. This is just to help me later, and then I'm on the outside, for the angle of my stitches. We are going to fill all this in. So here's a really long one. So don't worry about going too far into the next shape with your thread color. That's actually the more you go into the next color, the more it's going to have a nice even blend. So we are on purpose going to make some really big stitches here. Let's see. Oh, yep, Arloa, I am still in the same color. I'm actually almost out of this thread, so I'm going to change it right now. I just thought I could start a few stitches. Here in silk shading, this is how you finish your thread. I'm going to actually make 2 tiny stitches right in the freaking middle of this shape. I am not going to worry that this is a different color right here. I'm not going to worry about anything. I'm just going to make a little stitch, little tiny stitch, and I'm going to make another tiny stitch. So some people actually cross over the last stitch a little bit. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just kind of make a little X. And that is going to secure my thread, and I'm going to just come out down here again, and we're going to just let this sit. That is it. That is how we're going to start and stop our stitches. I'm going to trim this a little bit because it's a little long, but I'm going to leave it just like that. Woo! Flung my scissors. Okay, and we are going to start our next thread. Eventually I will move on to the 2 threads, but I'm going to wait till we're a little bit further with our first color here. Okay, so I'm going to grab my second piece of thread from here. Again, I cut this to about 24 inches, and I'm pulling out my threads one at a time. There's our next one. So I forgot to do this. You're going to actually start with these 2 stitches as well. I forgot to do that on our first one, but this is how you'll do it again. So threading it, and then we'll tie a little knot in the end again. And occasionally you can cut these away. As you stitch over them in the back, you're going to secure these, and these 2 little stitches secure it. So this is going to be good. Oh, okay, so Tracy's asking if you put the stick and stitch sticker, again, you could do this with the stick and stitch. That's this sticker here. Ideally, before you put it on, you could just trace the directional lines. You can even do it without a light table, really. I think you can maybe see that. Before sticking it on, you could just trace it from the pattern because the directional lines are on the pattern. You could also just kind of eyeball it. So if I were to eyeball it, I would aim my stitches to the middle. So I'm just going to put some directional lines. Let's just go around the middle like this and put some from the top too, kind of blending into there. That will do the job for you. All you need is a little suggestion of the angle of the stitches, and then you could just sort of eyeball the middle. Again, this is so fluid, the middle of where you blend, that it doesn't need to be perfect. So if I just know, okay, this top area, I know kind of at the top, I'm not even drawing the same shape, but I know at the top is a color. I know over here we got that yellow, and then we just got this halo of another color at the bottom here. This will do. So you could just draw it right on like that. You're going to have all the information you need from doing that. So just a pencil, that will work fine. But yeah, you can draw right on the top of that if you're using the stick and stitch. I think it'll be a little bit easier without the stick and stitch, but you totally could still use it. Okay. All right, so let's keep going here. So I'm going to start the next thread. So I tied that knot in the end, and I'm going to just, we're going to make a little web of little knots down here on the outside. Oops. So the one strand of floss is so little that my knot is so little, so I'm going to just not pull so hard. There we go. And again, I'm going to just come up in here in the middle, and I'm going to make those 2 little stitches. So I forgot to do this the first time. So before you do these stitch lines, you could do this. I don't think it's going to be a big deal that I forgot. But let's just make those 2 little stitches again. For extra security, you can cross over the first one. All right, now we're ready to stitch. So we're going to have all sorts of goofy little stitches in here, but they're all going to be hidden underneath, so you don't have to worry about it. So let's keep going with our directional stitches here. They're like a combination of short and long stitches. We'll dig into that a little bit more later, so it doesn't have to be totally perfect. What we're really looking at is the direction. This is just, we're going to totally use this as our full-on guide later. Yeah, and we're starting on the inside of our shape. Let's do a little shorty one here. And we're going onto the outside of our split stitch. This is one of those fun types of stitching that it looks crazy until it doesn't, which is just kind of fun. It just sort of appears. as you go, and it's then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, those two colors are totally blended together and pretty. All right, I am trying to glance up at your questions and stuff. So if I miss a question, just ask it again, or maybe someone else can answer here. Oh yes, so Fran's asking if this will be available to view later. Oh, her order's on the way. Awesome, Fran. Yes, so this will be up on YouTube forever. You know, pending YouTube is up forever. So it will be up on YouTube. At Penguin and Fish Movies is where we're at on YouTube. Fran, it will also be on Facebook, but I think it'll be a little bit easier to find on YouTube. I'll get it organized there. However, the pattern is only available for August. So at the end of August, this will go away. This is our embroidery of the month, and our next pattern will come out after that. Okay, there we go. We have our directional lines happening here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to do our long and short stitches, and we're going to keep in mind that this line there is sort of our center point. And unlike this design here where it's perfectly up and down all these stitches, this isn't with one strand of embroidery floss either, this is all the strands, but this is going perfectly up and down, kind of how we talked about here with the short and long, how these are perfectly up and down. We're going to be more organic. We're going to go diagonally. We are going to try and stick to our guidelines here, but if some are a little longer than others, some are a little shorter, some are in the middle, all that variation we want. That's going to make this whole thing just feel more organic and painted. So don't feel too restricted on the size and shape of your stitches. So I'm gonna start. We're gonna start on the left edge here, and we're gonna stitch one stitch right next to each other, itty bitty stitches, because we are only using one strand of floss here. So let's, and I'm gonna use again these other stitches as my guide. So let's go right next to this stitch here. So that'll be like a long stitch. Let's do another. And then the directional line that was there was already kind of a short stitch. So let's do another long stitch. There we go. We are literally going stitch by stitch right next to each other. So let's do a short one. And we do kind of have to angle as we go, just a hair, because all of these stitches are gradually going around and around, right? So let's just keep doing our best to fill it in. And the more you go into the next color, like if you do some really big long stitches, the more it's going to look blended. So don't worry about, am I going too far into the next color? It's actually probably going to look best the further you go into the next color. All right, so let's just try and angle these stitches a little bit. I'm trying to get my next stitch, my next stitches to be at the angle of our directional stitch here. So I'm making like a long stitch here. I have kind of shifted like a clock a little bit, my stitches. So they started off at like this angle, and then I sort of had to veer them at this angle by the time I got there. That's fine. Let's do a short one, because why not? And I am paying close attention to where I'm putting the needle in on the edge here, because this is going to be our nice final edge. I'm using my split stitches as a guide, and I'm going right over, right on the other side. But I do want to make sure that I'm paying attention to where I'm actually putting the needle in, so I don't like accidentally put one a little further out. I want this to be nice. So let's do a real long one. I'm going to go way out here. And sometimes, if I go, you can actually lay your thread down like this to see if your angle's right. And I think I think my angle where I came out here isn't quite right. I think it'd probably better fit in between my directional stitches. You know, this is kind of angled this way. You know, it probably fits better there. So I'm going to just put another stitch right there. There we go. I have a nice long one there now. And now I can fill it in a little bit. Let's do one there. You know, we can go back and forth through this a bit. Ooh, and you guys, I'm almost out of thread already again. Okay, let's get another short one. Let's get a real short one here. Let's get maybe a medium-sized one just to fill in that last little gap there. And then I think it's time for some more thread. So there we go. We're starting to fill this edge. And like I said, this takes a little while. I have not changed colors yet. I am not going to change colors until I've filled in this whole area. So we probably won't change colors till tomorrow. So you'll have to stick around for that. I find, so, you know, when I was researching this, how different people do this, some people go into the next color right away, but it seemed like most people finish their first row. But what's going to happen is when we finish this first row, we are going to keep this first color on deck. So we're actually going to, actually park it. And that means, like, when we're done stitching, we're actually going to put our needle up on top here with a bunch of thread ready to go. So while we work on the next color, like once we finish this row and we work on the next color, if there's like a little gap, like, dang, I wish I had one more stitch of that first color there, I can just take this off, put it in the right position, and fill in that gap. So right now, I'm just going to get that first row done. I need to get a new piece of thread here. And then once we have the next color, we're going to leave this color available to us with the first needle. We're going to start the second color with the second needle. And then we'll have this color on hand when we need it. And then when we feel like we got those first two colors blended really nicely, I will switch out the first needle for the next color. You could actually use 4 needles for the 4 different colors. All right, so here we go. We're going to just continue around this edge here. Let's see. Let's get another piece of thread. I think we'll get pretty close to finishing this first bit tonight. We just gotta start cruising. Oh, actually, you know what? It's already 9:20 here. So we'll go for about 10 more minutes or so. We will definitely 100% start blending color number 2 tomorrow. We have, it's important we got that first line prepped. And, blending for sure will happen tomorrow. That's going to be really fun. But one thing to remember, again, when you're doing this first color is don't be too afraid of crossing over into that next shape. Again, that is going to help. Those longer stitches are going to help blend the colors later. So it doesn't look like you just have some solid rows of color. We want those colors to blend. Okay, I'm doing my 2 little stitches here to lock the thread in place. And let's try and crank out some more long and short stitches here. Some organic long and short stitches. And I'm trying to get to that new angle of this stitch. I might have been at a little weird angle for this one. So it's a little intimidating doing these. I'm going to actually split this one in half here. Like, let's just kind of angle it down right in the middle there. I think having more lines is helpful for directional lines. But it's weird stitching like the one teeny tiny stitches next to each other, the one strand of stitch, but it really does, we do end up filling it up pretty quickly. So Mary's asking, why am I keeping these ends on the front? The main reason is I don't want a mess of threads at all happening on the back here. So by having all the ends on the front, it allows me to basically have a little bit more control of what they're doing. And we're going to be putting so many stitches in here that we're actually going to be kind of covering them all up, and that's going to lock them into place. So I will actually, before we're done tonight, I can actually snip those away. Let's do a really long one here. It seems to be kind of the silk shading thing to do. I do get why, though. It's keeping me from the back. So oftentimes in silk shading, you might have this in a frame, or you might be doing a huge design of a huge intricate design. You're not going to be able to flip to the back often, and weaving in the ends to the back like how I typically do. Just that pulling might shift our stitches enough on the back. I mean, this is like some precise work compared to some of just our normal embroidering that we're doing. So we want to like leave these stitches as unpulled by unnecessary weaving in on the back as we can here. So let's do a short one. I'm kind of making them all pretty long. We need some short ones in here too. So this is just like a nice, simple way to keep control of our threads by having them all on the front. And with these little stitches, that's kind of locking our thread in place, and also us just, constantly going to be stitching over our longer stitches. That's going to hold our thread in place as well. In theory, you could probably do this in your normal embroidery practice too, like having it on the front like this. But because we're making so many stitches, it is going to fill it in for us. It is going to hold those stitches on the back just by us filling it in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to kind of split the angle between these next two again. Then we'll fill it in. I'm almost out of thread again. But we're getting there. We're getting about halfway or so. Let's do a long one. So it feels like we're using a lot of thread really quickly, right? But it's actually just one strand. So I'm still on that first like 24 inches of thread that I started with. This is just the third strand, I think, of that 24 inches. Yep, I think I missed the beginning of that question, but yes, so these little starter tiny stitches, those are going to be completely covered up because we are fully filling this, so that those won't be an issue for us. Alright, I have a few more stitches in me. I think I'm going to kind of split the difference between these two angles. This seems like a big angle shift here from like, here to here. So let's just put a stitch right in the middle. That'll help us. Like the angle that's in between them. There we go. And let's do a real long one. Way up in here. That'll help with our blend again, and that's it for that, I think. Ooh, gosh, that might have been one too many stitches, actually. So let's do our two little stitches if we can in the middle here. Just barely. I might only be able to do one. Nah, they're tiny. We'll do one more. All right, and then we can come up here, And we can actually snip these away. I think once we start the next color, I'll start snipping these away because, you know, at least these first ones are well covered up. I could actually do that now. So as you're going, you know, you might get sick of these all around. You can just snip these little knots. I'm going to leave these ones just because those are a little newer, I think. Actually, this one might not be. Let's get this guy. There. So that's all you really need to do. You'll have like these little fuzzles on the back. You could snip those shorter if you wanted, or you could just leave them for now. Again, the idea with silk shading is that I'm probably not going to be flipping back and forth like this a lot. I should be able to stay on the front of my piece the whole entire time without like weaving in the ends or anything. So using this method of starting and stopping will allow me to just stay on the front. All right, let's just clip this a little shorter, and we'll get another thread. I think we'll be able to do one more thread tonight, so we're getting there. So tomorrow we'll just kind of review what we're doing here because we'll have a little bit more to go, and then we'll start the next shade here, which is this Euro Peach color. It's really close, but just a slight variation. It's slightly more pink. It's slightly lighter than this color here. So because it's so close, we're going to have a really good blend happening. So again, ideally with silk shading, you know, if you're going easily, like if you're going from one color to next, it's going to look more blended the closer those colors are. So if you go from like a yellow to blue, for example, that's not going to look totally perfectly blended, but like a yellow to a yellow-orange and then to an orange, you know, that would blend better. I mean, eventually you could go from like a yellow to a yellow-green and then to a green-blue and then to a blue. That might be a way to get from the yellow to blue, but just going straight from yellow to blue, it's going to be tough to have it like look perfectly blended. So these small shifts in color make it easy. All right. Oh, and just so you guys know, this is a bundle. I'm not sure everyone knows that. This is a bundle that is available till the end of the month. So you get the pattern as a digital pattern and all the instructions. You'll have this video forever, but there are photo and written instructions included on how to do this too. And if you like the design but don't want to do the silk shading, you can do it in this chain stitch version as well. So what I find kind of fun is how you can have two totally different looks. So here's like the two looks. But they're the same design and it looks completely different, like a totally different look. And that's what's so fun about embroidery, I think, is just the variety you can get. And that's just comes through even in our Penguin and Fish Crafters group. Everyone, you know, even if we're working on the same project, they all have their own personality. They all look different. I just love it. I mean, everyone's, you know, even the exact same thing. Your stitch is going to look different than someone else's. It's just each thing has its own personality. Let's do a short one here. But yeah, the same pattern you can stitch in so many different ways. Oh, Fran, this would be so perfect to do with your granddaughter. I don't know her age, but even like young kids can use a needle, and even if they put little stitches, even if they're not following the design, just the act of putting stitches into the fabric and they know that they did those stitches, just like you can see on their face how excited they are that they like made that mark on that fabric, you know? I mean, they put something into the world, you know? And you can see it on their face, and it's just so cool. And I mean, that's what I love about crafting. And it's just really neat to see when like really little kids get it. And you know, that's not just for little kids too. I mean, adults who are crafting for the first time, it's the same thing. But when you see a kid just like preciously hold their, 5 stitches or whatever that they put onto fabric, it is just the coolest. Ooh, she's 9. Oh, that is such a good age to get going on this for sure. On embroidery. Embroidery is such a good first craft. There's no wrong, whatever you end up is going to be, however it looks, is going to be fine. And you just learn a stitch or two and you're good to go. And you're not like totally invested in a huge project or anything. I think it's just like such a good first craft. So there's some spaces I could fill in. I'm seeing like some gaps here and there. I'm not going to worry too much about it yet because I can totally go fill those in later, and I will. When we get that second color going, I'll probably let's go in the middle of these two. I'll probably keep on filling it in with this color as well. Remember, we're gonna be stitching with 2 colors soon. We'll be keeping on with this. We'll be starting our second color, that peach color in the middle, the Euro Peach. That's the name of the color, which kind of inspired this design. But we will be having this second color, or like the color that we're using now, we'll be having that on hand on the different needle. So we'll be working with 2 needles, and we will be able to fill in gaps or add more blends, more fills or whatever, while we also have that other color working. And we're definitely going to get to that tomorrow, and that's going to be where the real fun kind of happens. We're going to learn another new technique of parking our floss. We'll be doing a lot of that tomorrow, so that'll be kind of fun. And then yes, we will be blending our colors together tomorrow with that second thread color. I'm if you're popping in and out, I'm still on this first thread color. Oh, could I do a close-up view of the stitches? So here we are. I don't know, here I'm a little bit closer. I can stitch this close too for a little bit. So I'm always starting from the inside. And then I'm just doing a variety of long and short stitches. I'm not doing, I'm not trading off them perfectly. I am just keeping it kind of organic. And I'm working on filling those gaps in between my directional lines. Let's do a short one here. And again, that line that we drew on, that's kind of like a rough guide of what the middle area, like where the 2 colors will blend, where they'll like crisscross. So like if the colors crisscross like this, then that line would be like right in the middle of them, right? And it's just a loose guide. It's all just like a visual guideline to help us lay our stitches down. Just like how these directional lines are helping us just with the angle. That kind of helps us. Okay, I'm only going to go a little past that line and a little before that line. Then we'll get our blend going. Okay, I think we got to end this thread. So I'm going to put my 2 little stitches. Again, all of this will get completely covered up. All right, let's pop out the side here again. All right, and I think that is where we're going to probably leave it tonight. I'll show you this up close, and then I'll show you the finished one again so you can see where we're headed. But there we go. Again, we started with that. I'll get my little, we'll get a little pointer in here. So I started with the outside split stitch. And go ahead and watch the video again if you missed me doing the split stitch, because I did a different basically a different type of split stitch where it's like a pierced back stitch, and it's way easier, especially when you're using just one strand of floss, which is what we're doing. We're just using one strand of embroidery floss. That'll get it like super silky and nice just using that one strand. And then we did our directional lines, where we just did an occasional long and short all the way across, just to just what was in the pattern here. See, you can see all those gray lines. That helped us just decide what the direction our lines are going in, and then we filled it in little by little all the way around. And we just have this little bit left to go, and then we will start this area here, which will be that next color. It'll be that peach color, the Euro peach. So it'll be this color here. Pretty close, but not quite the same. Again, a little pinkier, a little lighter. We're going to blend that in. And that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. So we'll finish that up. And tomorrow we will also be using 2 embroidery needles at the same time. It's exciting. I'm pretty stoked about it. So I'll show you how to do that method as well. So, all right, you guys. Oh, and then here's the finished one. So you can see that outline that we're doing now. Let's get them like right next to each other here. So again, there's that outline, and then all of these stitches here in the middle, that light pink that is pretty close to this outside color, that's the color that we're going to do next. And we have blended it so it almost looks like it's going right into our first color there. So that is our plan for tomorrow. I don't know if we'll get farther than that from tomorrow, but after we do that, we will move on to the next color, which is up here, that tiger lily color. But there, that is the plan. I think we got a really good start tonight, you guys. I'm stoked. I'm really excited. I hope we get this done fast enough so we can do the little strawberry too. Here's a little baby strawberry. I think he'd be fun. Just do the 2 next to each other or something. All right, you guys, I'm going to flip you around. Okay, so let's take a look from here. It's just fun to look at for size sometimes. So it's so small. It is about the size of a quarter maybe, but it's looking good so far. It does look crazy though, right? It looks silly with all those extra stitches. It looks like we're going way into that other shape, but that's what's going to help us with that blend, like going way into it. Still having our short ones, our short stitches that are just in that border, that little edge, but having some of those long ones, the bigger that crisscross, the more smooth our blend is going to be. So I'm excited. This is going to be great. It's going to be fun to keep stitching this week. Again, this is that bundle. This is the Embroidery of the Month, the Your Sweet pattern for the Embroidery of the Month. It's available just for August. There is just the pattern if you only want the pattern. It's a printable pattern. And it's long. It's like a 10-page one because I show all the pictures of how to do this along the way too. So the video is great here. I think that's going to help. But if you just want a quick reference, there are photos on this entire process as well, along with the tips like how to park your needle, which we'll be doing tomorrow, and the split stitch, outlining all that. And then the bundle has all of the floss you will want in it, plus fabric, both needles, 2 needles, and so you'll be good to go for that. And the videos will be up on YouTube on Penguin and Fish Movies forever and ever. So there's time to keep working on it. So thanks again, guys. I really appreciate you working on this with me. It's a new technique we have not really done here before, and it's doable. I believe you can do it, and you can share in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. I'd love to see how it's going for you guys. So see you tomorrow. I'm excited to keep going. Have a good evening. Good night, everyone.